Nothing is more terrifying than a horrific unsolved murder and the possibility that the perpetrator is still at large, free, and waiting to strike again. While conviction rates have improved dramatically in the last few decades, thanks to improvements in police forensic techniques and tools, there remain an unsettling number of truly chilling unsolved cases that haunt the communities affected as neighbor watches neighbor, knowing there's a possibility a killer lives amongst them. Welcome to this episode of the Infographics Show, Top 10 Most Heinous Unsolved Murders. At number 10 is the Women of Juarez. Juarez, or Juarez City, is a Mexican border town known for its extreme drug trafficking-related violence, with the US State Department warning Americans to steer clear at all costs. Yet for the last 3 decades, someone has been killing the women of Juarez, and seems to have absolutely no connection to cartel violence. Specifically targeting young, slim brunettes with big eyes, anywhere from 260 to over 400 women have been raped, tortured, and killed since 1993, their bodies further mutilated after death and discarded in ditches, fields, or even on roadways in plain public sight. Despite the obvious danger, young women continue to come to Ciudad Juarez, lured by employment opportunities in a growing industrial sector that aren't available at home. In November 2017, 2 bus drivers were arrested and confessed to the rape, torture, and murder of 8 new victims, but later it was suspected that their confessions were coerced under torture by a frustrated police force. Whether the bus drivers were guilty or not, their arrest did not stop the killing, with 2 more victims discovered while the men awaited trial in jail. Mexican authorities remain convinced that the killings are not related to cartel violence, but are completely stumped as to the perpetrators. Meanwhile, the head of the FBI office across the border in El Paso warns that there is a real possibility the killings are the responsibility of an American serial killer drawn to the area due to the known ineffectiveness of local Mexican police. At number 9 is a Hollywood legend and cautionary tale to young starlets everywhere: the murder of the Black Dahlia. On the morning of January 15, 1947, a mother walking with her child in a Los Angeles neighborhood stumbled upon what she thought was at first a discarded mannequin, but upon closer inspection, realized to her horror that it was the nude and dismembered body of young 22-year-old Hollywood hopeful Elizabeth Short. The young actress had apparently been tied up and tortured for days before finally being killed. The killer then cut her body neatly in half along the waist and drained it all of blood, carefully laying it down on an abandoned lot and posing it with arms raised over the shoulders and legs splayed in a lurid, seductive pose. Her mouth had also been sliced open from ear to ear to extend her smile. Due to the precise and nearly surgical nature of the way the body had been cut and exsanguinated, police immediately conducted interviews with medical students at the University of Southern California Medical School, but found no suspect. Weeks later, the police received an anonymous letter possibly sent by the killers, but were unable to match the fingerprints with anything in the FBI's files. At number 8 is the haunting murder of JonBenet Ramsey. On December 26, 1996, John Ramsey found his 6-year-old daughter dead in the basement of his Boulder, Colorado home. Just 8 hours prior, his wife had found a ransom note demanding $118,000 in cash for their daughter's safe return, though the kidnappers never contacted the couple again. With no kidnappers trying to collect a ransom, the entire family was under suspicion for murder of the 6-year-old beauty pageant queen, with John Ramsey's 2 adult children from a previous marriage the first to be cleared of suspicion. The police then shifted their focus to her 9-year-old brother Burke, and then to John Ramsey and his wife Patsy. 3 years later, at age 12, Burke was questioned by a grand jury but not charged, and in 2006, John Mark Carr was arrested on suspicion of murdering JonBenet, only to have the case dropped when DNA proved he could not have been at the crime scene. John and his now dead wife Patsy were finally cleared of suspicion after new DNA evidence was discovered, pointing to a mysterious and unknown third party. Though John Ramsey maintains hope that the killer will be brought to justice, there seems to be little chance that that will actually ever happen. At number 7 is a baffling case from Vancouver, British Columbia. Since August 2007, a total of 14 human feet have washed ashore, still stuffed into the sneakers the individuals were wearing at the time of death. While DNA tests match some of the feet to missing people with mental health issues, the other feet have yet to be identified, and no killer or motive is apparent. While some have proposed natural explanations, such as the feet belonging to drowning victims, it's mysterious that the feet only began to appear in 2007 and have not stopped yet. Number 6 is a classic American crime story, the double murder of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. On June 12, 1994, American football player O.J. Simpson alleged that he came home to discover his wife and her lover dead. While most Americans remain extremely suspicious of Simpson's guilt, and with large amounts of circumstantial evidence all piled up against him, Simpson was eventually found not guilty of the murder, though a civil suit filed by Nicole Simpson's family would find him guilty, and Simpson would go on to release a book entitled If I Did It. Despite these developments, the criminal matter remains technically unsolved. One of the most famous authors in American history, Edgar Allan Poe's death, is our number 5 unsolved mystery. Leaving New York City late in 1849 and bound for Richmond, Virginia, Poe would only make it as far as Baltimore, where a passerby noticed Poe delirious and incoherent outside of a bar on October 3rd. Taken to a nearby hospital, Poe would be dead within 4 days, with the official cause listed as congestion of the brain, a euphemism of that age for alcohol poisoning. Accepted at the time as a valid explanation, scholars in later years would discover that the rumors of his drug and alcohol abuse were greatly exaggerated by vindictive literary critics hoping to discredit the talented author. While some historians believe he may have suffered from rabies, cholera, or even syphilis, others believe that Poe may have fallen victim to a practice known as cooping, wherein corrupt politicians paid thugs to kidnap homeless men, drug them, disguise them, and then drag them to polls all over the city or state, possibly explaining why Poe was headed for Richmond, but only made it as far as Baltimore and wearing clothes that weren't his. At number 4 is a truly terrifying crime, the Tylenol Murders of 1982. When buying medicine, the last thing you expect is for it to make you feel worse, let alone kill you. Yet that's exactly what happened to 7 individuals who ingested potassium cyanide-laced Tylenol capsules. No killer was ever discovered, and in later years, more people would die from copycat crimes, ultimately leading to major industry reforms in package anti-tampering devices and laws both. While no one was officially charged with the murders, New York City resident James William Lewis was considered a prime suspect and convicted of extortion after sending a letter to Tylenol manufacturer Johnson & Johnson, taking credit for the deaths and demanding $1 million to stop them. At number 3 is the murder of American hip-hop legend Tupac Shakur. On November 30th, 1994, Tupac was shot a total of 5 times, 3 times in the chest and twice in the head, but survived. The rapper immediately pointed a finger at several New York rappers, including Sean Combs and the Notorious B.I.G., as responsible for the murder attempt. This would lead to the further escalating of an already explosive East Coast-West Coast rivalry that spread violence throughout the hip-hop community. On September 7, 1996, as Tupac Shakur left a boxing match at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, a white Cadillac pulled up alongside his vehicle and shot the rapper multiple times. Rushed to a hospital, Shakur would die 6 days later of internal bleeding. The Notorious B.I.G. and Sean Combs were immediately suspected of having orchestrated the murder, but suspicion also spread to Tupac's own manager and notorious hip-hop producer Suge Knight. In the end, the case remains unsolved, with some fans believing the rapper faked his own death and still produces music somewhere in secret. I like killing people because it is so much fun. So begins one of several encrypted letters to San Francisco newspapers by a man calling himself the Zodiac. At the number 2 spot, the Zodiac killer story is by now the stuff of American crime legend, and several films have been produced following the 1969 murder spree that terrorized Bay Area residents. Starting on December 20th, 1968, with the murder of a couple shot to death in their car as they parked on Lover's Lane, the killer would strike again over the next 10 months, killing a total of 5, though there are strong possibilities he killed even more. What made the Zodiac's murder spree so fascinating, though, were the enigmatic and coded letters he sent to newspapers, teasing at his motives and identity. Though the investigation would go on for years and several suspects were considered, the Zodiac was never caught and remains at large. And finally, at number 1, is the single most haunting unsolved crime in all of history, the murder spree of Jack the Ripper. Between August 7th and November 10th, 1888, a total of 5 prostitutes were killed in the Whitechapel district of London's East End. The victims all had their throats slashed and bodies mutilated, some with body parts or internal organs missing, including one victim whose kidney was mailed to the police, along with a series of notes taunting investigators and signed by someone calling themselves the Ripper. Though 3 suspects were identified early in the investigation, the search for the Ripper's real identity ultimately proved fruitless, and nobody was ever charged with the murders. Terrified Londoners became so outraged at the police's failure to apprehend the killer that both the Home Secretary and London Police Commissioner would end up resigning in disgrace. When we're kids, we believe in monsters, until we grow up enough to learn that monsters don't really exist, nor are they lurking under your bed waiting to eat you. Yet as these top 10 unsolved murders all show, monsters may be more real than we would like to believe, and a great deal of them all remain at large, waiting for their next victim. So, which of these heinous unsolved murders do you think is the most chilling? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video called 50 Insane World War II Facts That Will Shock You. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time!